Last week I wrote about distinction, and this week I will continue on that theme. Just as the United States and Israel have launched joint airstrikes on Iran, Iranians abroad are continuing the resistance begun inside the country. At the AFC Women's Asian Cup in Australia, several members of Iran's women's national football team refused to sing the national anthem, an incident tightly bound with repression, women, and human rights, and once again a useful case study for training our thinking. The incident began on the 3rd of March, when Iran faced South Korea on Gold Coast, 4 days after the Iran war had broken out and Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei had been killed. Before kickoff, the anthem was played and none of the players sang. In a normal country, this would of course not be an issue, and Iran has no explicit law dictating how athletes must behave when the anthem is played. In practice, however, athletes are expected to sing along and salute in quasi-military fashion. Those who fail to do so are often investigated, summoned by security services, forced into public apologies, or barred from future national team selection. This time, state media harshly condemned the players involved as wartime traitors and called for severe punishment, clearly signaling that the squad would face terror at the hands of the regime. Over the following 6 days, Iran played 2 more group matches against Australia and the Philippines, and on both occasions the players sang the anthem and saluted. Fans worried about the team's fate, gathering to show support and even blocking the team bus in an effort to rescue them from being sent home to face retribution. Some players from behind the bus windows made SOS gestures, drawing even more attention to their plight. The Australian government swiftly granted political asylum to 6 players, and US President Donald Trump stated that if Australia couldn't take them all, the United States would. One player who had been offered protection chose to return to Iran. Australian President Albanese said this was her personal decision and reiterated his government's commitment to defending the team. Only regimes that imagine themselves on a level with God turn inanimate symbols of state and abstract emblems into objects of worship, demanding that citizens prostrate themselves before these icons wherever they go. Anyone with basic standards of fact and ethics will support protection for the Iranian women footballers. The case clearly evokes the broader issue of the treatment of women in Iran and is easily viewed through the lens of women's rights, so support for the players can quickly be framed as equivalent to support for feminism. Returning to the theme of distinction, this time we should begin with a warning against careless distinctions. The anthem issue ought to be understood at several levels, the most basic of which does not require a gender rights perspective at all. Any Iranian athlete who fails to behave in the anthem ceremony as the government demands is likely to face the same punishment, regardless of sex. Moreover, whether male or female, no one should be punished for refusing to sing the anthem. Such treatment is equally unjust whoever suffers it. In that sense too, the core of this incident is not about gender. However, if we move one level up, there is value in examining this issue from a women's rights perspective. To begin with, the status of women in Iran is clearly unlike that in more civilized, developed regions. They can be harassed by the morality police simply for not wearing a headscarf properly in public. The marriage system allows polygamy. Teenage girls are forced into marriage. All these phenomena show that women in Iran are structurally disadvantaged, systematically singled out by the regime for differential and unnecessary treatment, which is discrimination. In this context, discussing the case through the lens of women's rights has clear positive significance. Because of the differences in region, regime, and legal systems, what the world calls women's rights often diverges dramatically, with entirely different focal points. For example, many Western advocates of feminism, not only women, may criticize patriarchy for oppressing women, stripping their rights and twisting their minds, yet when it comes to cases like Iranian footballers being intimidated, they seldom so much as throw half a rotten egg at one of the most viciously chauvinist regimes on earth. Their theories can paint a picture of universal female oppression, but somehow always neglect to apply that critique to the countries most in need of help. They do not protest child marriage, the trafficking of girls, or forced school dropouts. Most focus instead on online misogyny, bodily autonomy, and pay equity. These are the banners they choose to raise. So when we speak of women's rights, we should first ask, are we fighting for women in Iran, Pakistan, Sudan, Congo, Sierra Leone, or for those in places where the law allows legal gender changes at will? Even among advanced societies, women's rights trajectories differ between the West and East Asia. And within East Asia, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and Hong Kong have each followed distinct paths. On the surface, these are regional distinctions. In substance, they clarify context. The public should not assume that once the women's rights flag is raised, all human rights defenders must automatically unite as one. For now, some forms of feminism receive loud efficacy, while others are quietly ignored for years on end. British author J.K. Rowling, after the Iranian government condemned the players for refusing to sing the anthem, posted on X calling on FIFA and the Australian government to protect them. Together with her previous efforts helping Afghan women escape Taliban persecution, Rowling again demonstrated her concern for women's rights outside the West. Some netizens questioned her appeal, arguing that if the players flee Iran, their families back home will face retaliation. Rowling stood firm, saying, "If my own daughters were among these girls, I wouldn't hesitate to urge them to stay where they were safe, no matter the consequences to me." We can rarely predict the full consequences of any action, especially when confronting cruel, violent powers, where ordinary people feel particularly helpless. Still, the willingness to put ourselves in others' shoes may be the first essential step when we speak about their rights. If you have any idea or like this video, please comment, like, subscribe and share. I'll be grateful if you support me on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, making us go even further. See you on the next video.